Tonight in Newsnight Scotland, there's celebrity endorsement, and then there's David Bowie. But whether you're a fan or not, does any of it make the slightest bit of difference when it comes to deciding how you're going to vote? Good evening. On the face of it, it's absurd that Kate Moss, speaking the words of David Bowie at a glamorous music industry awards ceremony, should have any impact at all on the referendum debate. But an awful lot of people have been speaking about it and writing, broadcasting and tweeting about it. So is the campaign just desperate for a little glamour, however vicarious? Or do the campaigners have hopes or fears that celebrity endorsement could have a serious impact? We'll discuss that shortly with an all-star cast. But first, Hugh Williams reports.
The award might not have been a surprise.
And the winner, somewhat predictably, is Mr. David Bowie.
But the acceptance speech was, firstly, because it was read by Kate Moss.
Kate comes from Venus and I from Mars, so that's nice.
And secondly, because of that now famous last line.
Thank you very, very much. And Scotland, stay with us.
Politics is sometimes called showbiz for ugly folk. Today, the two worlds collided.
The whole chamber want to join me in congratulating Eve Muirhead in the rink on winning the bronze medal at the Winter Olympics. Perhaps that's a demonstration that we all can be heroes just for one day.
And Britain have won the bronze medal. Just for one day.
But Holyrood wasn't finished yet.
Now that David Bowie has come out for the Union, can the First Minister explain to us why Bowie is preposterous, bluffing and bullying?
Bowie isn't the first celebrity to back Better Together.
Let's stand together and let us not, like snarling curs, in wrangling be divided.
And yes, Scotland has its stars too.
In the past 15 years, we've become stronger economically, socially, culturally, and globally. The world is waiting for us, and I know Scotland is ready.
Even taking the message to the heart of New York.
Why not try? Why not try at least? And then see what happens then, you know? I mean, life's just about moving forward, I think, you know? So I think for those reasons, if I could vote, I'd vote yes.
The celebrity, politicians, media, elites, as it were.
But celebrity endorsements can go badly wrong.
Most high profile, I suppose, recently would be something like Tiger Woods, who has presents a particular image through his endorsements, and then that image is revealed by the media to be inaccurate, and suffers badly for that. I mean, the flip side of that, of course, as well, is that you can have, particularly in the US, celebrity endorsements who then move into the political arena themselves, and from Clint Eastwood to Arnold Schwarzenegger and others, that there's a way also to which there can be that movement. I mean, it's not occurred yet too much within the UK or Scottish context, but perhaps that's something we should keep an eye on for the future, as celebrities moving into that political arena quite explicitly.
So this isn't an opening shot for David Bowie's political career?
I suspect at 67, any political ambition he has may be behind him, so I suspect that wasn't the driver of the intervention on this occasion.
We talk a little bit about you as well.
And interestingly, some celebrities choose not to use television interviews to try and influence others how to vote.
I try and keep a way out of it. I don't want to be an influence in it. I don't want to influence anybody. A lot of people take your word for like it's spun gold. There's some sense to it. I don't want to influence anybody, so I shut up. I think the Scots will come to a good conclusion in the referendum. They'll get what they deserve.
So what about last night's intervention? Will it really make a difference?
Well, he doesn't actually live in this country, so I didn't see why he should have an opinion on it. He lived here before, so that's fair enough, but he actually lives in New York now, so I don't see why he should be basically butting in.
I wouldn't be quite sure where his background from that would be, although he's a very, very clever man. I mean, we saw that, those of us of a certain age know that from 35 years ago. Very clever man, so he's probably researched it.
They've got a right to say what they feel, but also people should be able to make their own minds up themselves. some people might get swayed a bit, but
I don't see why we should be particularly interested in David Bowie's opinion, but I live in England, so perhaps my opinion doesn't count that much either. I don't know.
The one thing we know now is that after expressing his concern at constitutional changes, David Bowie is a firm supporter of Better Together. Right?
Nothing will keep us together.
I'm joined now by Murray MacDonald, who runs the Scottish end of the PR company Webber Shandwick. Jenny Lindsay is a performance poet who speaks tonight for the National Collective, a pro-independence arts group. And in London, the singer and political activist Billy Bragg. Well, look, Jenny Lindsay, before we get into any wider issues, I'm just curious, what do you make of David Bowie and what he said?
What he said? Well, David Bowie is obviously a legend. In terms of what he said, to be honest with you, I mean, he wasn't, to me, he wasn't sort of campaigning in any way. He was making a sort of a throwaway comment through the medium of Kate Moss. So in terms of how much of an impact what he said will have, I mean, I think it's...
I'm not quite sure a comment can be throwaway when you have a model say it at an awards ceremony. Yes.
Right, okay, possibly not. But I don't think in terms of the independence debate, certainly that it's something that will sway anyone either way, really. And in that sense, he wasn't campaigning. He was just making a comment from outside.
What did you make of it?
Well, he certainly delivered his message in a most peculiar way, but the fact he did that,
you would expect nothing less.
Well, exactly. Bowie has been famous throughout his career for backing controversial ideas, talking about controversial ideas, and you have to wonder, was this in some ways a clever way of effectively making sure that he was a dominant voice that came out to the awards last night? He certainly is. He's dominated the media. And so from a PR point of view, you could argue he's been very successful, and maybe that might help him sell albums this year.
Billy Bragg, what did you make of it?
Well, I was pleased to hear, and I hope that some of our younger pop stars watching might think to themselves, well, David's got all the front pages from making a political comment. Maybe I should try making a political comment, see if it makes a difference. I'd love to see that.
Right. As a PR man, do you think these things have the slightest effect?
No, I don't think they have a huge effect. I think the one thing that this type of intervention does, and there's only so many celebrities who are big enough to cause the fuss that's been caused today. I mean, if One Direction last night had done this, they might have caused a bit of a fuss as well, but even more remote from it. I don't think it has an impact generally on how people will actually vote at the end of the day. I think the one positive thing that can come out of it is about getting groups who might not be so engaged in the political discussion to actually engage about it and think about it a bit more. And in fact, there was a piece of research done for the European Marketing Journal that actually put that thesis forward, that it wasn't necessarily changing people's votes, but this type of celebrity backing can get people who are normally disengaged from the process more engaged.
Yeah, I can sort of see that with the Arctic Monkeys. I have an awful feeling, without being rude about David Bowie, that he would probably get engaged precisely the people who are already quite interested in the matter.
Possibly, but David Bowie is a huge act. He appeals to an older generation, and within that generation there are plenty of undecided people who may not vote. I mean, the last election we had less than 60% of people voting, so if there are interventions like this, from whatever aspect they come from, it surely can only be a good thing. Do people take it seriously? I suspect not. I mean, another piece of research actually over in the States demonstrated that when celebrities endorsed, it had no effect on how people voted, and the main effect was on the opposite campaign actually having a negative impression of the celebrity who was making the endorsement.
Billy Bragg, you were trying to come in.
Yeah, I was just saying, I mean, he's already had, and I think he's had an incredible effect on the debate, something that no one could have prophesied. He's made Alistair Darling look hip. I mean, who would have believed that just by that intervention? But, celebrities have always made interventions. Robbie Burns was a celebrity when he went to Edinburgh. An English newspaper in London offered him a gig. Flower of Scotland was written by a celebrity.
Right.
This has always been the way. I mean, I think another thing
I
about
think your
Bowie
thesis that he's made Alistair Darling look hip perhaps needs some development.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that Bowie comes, like myself, from the late 20th century, when music was the only social medium that was open to us if we wanted to talk about anything in the world. That was the only opportunity I had when I was 19. Now, young people, if they want to say something about the world, they have so many media open to them on the internet. So music no longer carries that sort of vanguard role in society. And I think Bowie's intervention has reminded us how powerful it can be.
Right. What do you think? Do you think it has any effect?
I think in terms of what Murray was just saying about celebrities can add something to the debate in terms of certainly getting us talking and perhaps adding a bit of sparkle and comedy as well. Actually, I mean, I do think that one thing that has come out of his speech is quite a lot of punning going on Twitter, which, you know, a bit of comedy is fine.
But you seem relaxed. Somebody's telling me actually, late breaking info, that you're actually a bit of a David Bowie fan.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, the man writes.
So even though you don't agree with him on this particular issue, you don't resent the fact that he.
No, I don't resent anybody voicing an opinion of sorts. I mean, I do think what he said was not so much an opinion as a sort of instruction, and I think that what would be very useful is if people sort of putting forward their views on the Scottish independence debate were more engaged with actually what that debate's about, which is democracy and self-determination. It's not about drifting off into the North Sea. And I suppose, sort of following on from what Murray was saying about adding the sparkle and things like that, I think what cases like this do highlight is that the campaign is really being led by the grassroots, by ordinary people organising sessions, by cultural activists, really.
Okay, I take your point, but if that's true, why do you think it is that both sides in this, both the Yes campaign and the Better Together campaign, are quite happy to parade any celebrity that they can get their hands on?
Well, I think to be honest with you, perhaps what we're talking about now might highlight why that might be. I think the celebrity endorsements are one thing, is of having a celebrity saying, right, I'm voting yes or I'm voting no, but the real important work is done by the people who use their celebrity or the fact that they're well known or renowned playwrights or poets to become cultural activists for what they believe in. It's not a case
of... that rather keys into precisely what I was going to say to Billy Bragg, which is that you're in a slightly different position, aren't you? Because you have been a political activist and tried to use your music to further political causes throughout your career. Now that's what Jenny Lindsay's talking about, isn't it? That's a very different thing, actually, from what David Bowie making a remark is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, David doesn't have form in these kinds of issues. You know, I've been writing about national identity for the last decade, initially in response to the rise of the British National Party in England. But the debates about the Scottish identity and the way the Scottish identity has changed over the past 30 years is for those of us in England who are looking at ourselves and thinking, well, you know, how do we find that way of sort of a new sense of self? How do we come together? Whether it's yes or no for independence. Scotland has definitely changed in its sense of who it is. We're watching and thinking, well, how does that happen?
But having tried to be an activist through your music, as well as producing music which I know you hope people will listen to, even if they don't agree with your politics, but do you feel you have been successful, and if so, how?
Well, it's very hard to measure. It's very hard to measure that kind of thing. Music doesn't change the world. People change the world. This issue will ultimately be decided by the Scottish people in September. But music does have a role to play. It can offer people a different perspective. It can encourage people. You know, musicians are not, as Jenny was saying, as cultural activists, we're not here to lead, but we are here to point the way. And I think that's the most we can expect to do.
But does that still work? Because you seem to be implying a few minutes ago that role for music had, to a large extent, gone.
Well, I think in the way young people think about music, it's no longer the only social media available to them. I mean, people got onto Twitter last night. I was following that David Bowie punning hashtag last night, and that was how people were expressing their response to Bowie, rather than writing to the NME, which almost sounds like a Stone Age thing to do, doesn't it? The important thing about that is more people can take part in the debate. When it was only, people who could get up on stage and sing, that's quite a high bar. Not everybody can do that. Now, with the internet, everybody can make their contribution. Obviously, you have to deal with some negatives there as well. But broadly, I think the debates that I've taken part of on the internet since I started speaking in favour of Scottish independence, I've learned a lot. They've been quite positive.
Well, maybe not, but putting your PR hat on for a moment. I mean, given that both sides are quite, in this debate, are quite keen to claim any individuals or businesses that will come out on one side or the other, what do you advise, say, a business coming to you and saying, look, we're not quite sure what to do. We feel one way or the other, but should we actually say it? What do you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, well, this is actually something we advise a lot of businesses on, and it's quite a tricky one. I mean, if a business has a fundamental concern that independence or lack of independence might impact them by hundreds of millions of pounds or a big issue for them, then they clearly should take a stance, because that's going to impact their business. If it's just because people on the board or some chief executive has a general view that maybe we should be going this way, my strong advice would be to try and stay clear of it. It's a very vicious debate, and it's going to be more and more vicious over the next few months. There genuinely is no real reason for any business to get involved in that unless they can pick a real business reason for it. And I advise them to stay out of it, because all they will get is negative from one half of the campaign, and actually their chances of having a real impact on the actual vote are very, very slim.
Now, Jenny Lindsay, the completely different approach taken, of course, by another sainted celebrity, Billy Connolly, who we saw in that interview there saying, I think it's up to people in Scotland. People sometimes follow what I'm saying. He made a joke of it, and I don't really want that to happen. What do you make of that approach?
I think that's absolutely valid, and it's completely a personal choice. I mean, in terms of the Yes side of the campaign and National Collective, which is the part that I am involved with, most crucially, it's not a case of sort of lining up a sort of tally list of celebrities who we want to endorse a yes vote. It's about finding voices and offering a platform for people who actually have something to say and who want to say it. I mean, this campaign is exceptionally exciting, and it is about people, it's about democracy, and it's about the grassroots, essentially. And those are the voices that we want to hear from. Grassroots artists, grassroots musicians, grassroots poets.
Right.
Only last night we had an open session in Edinburgh, which was attended maybe by about 40, 50 people. And this is people who are voting yes, but also undecided people coming along, hearing music, hearing stories, hearing personal sort of journeys to a yes vote, and really engaging with that. That kind of thing is going on all across the country, and it is largely unreported, obviously, which is a bit of a shame, but it's happening, and that's going to make the difference.
Billy Bragg, what do you make of Billy Connolly's stance on this? Because it's a rather different one from yours, but it's also quite sensible, isn't it? He actually worries that his status as a celebrity will be taken seriously by people if he spoke out and would somehow influence them. He thinks that's a bad thing. It's a pretty reasonable point of view, isn't it?
I don't think it's much of a stance, really. I don't think you can really call it a stance. It's more of a sitting out of the debate, and I respect that. Some people want to do that, they want to do that. But the gentleman from the PR company there was talking about the business case. People like David Bowie, people in my industry, poets, artists, creative people, we don't write from the pocket like business does. We're not thinking about what's going on in the pocket. We're trying to write from the heart. And I believe that the Scottish independence debate will be decided by the heart of Scotland rather than the pocket of Scotland. So I think we do have a contribution to make.
Right, you are snorting quietly in the background here.
Well, to say the music industry is not about money is utter nonsense.
The industry may be. No, you're talking about the record. You're talking about the record industry there, mate. I'm talking about those of us who write songs and do gigs.
Well, I think David Bowie's made an awful lot of money, and I think he's looking to make much more money this year out of his new album that's come out. But Jenny's point is actually the most important one. These celebrity endorsements will get big news stories because we're all interested in tittle tattle. But actually, the way that the referendum will be won or lost is by people on the ground and how they vote, and it's all about how the parties manage the data and manage the communities and get people talking to each other. If the parties can get communities and individuals and neighbours to speak to each other and put their view across, that will be much, much more powerful than people how they actually
we're running
vote.
out of time. Now, you of course, are on the Yes side of this.
Yes.
Billy, you're a celebrity coming out for Yes on this programme. So, for the sake of balance, I'm afraid, Murray, you are a celebrity coming out.
Ah, well, I also have to stay in the undecided camp just with that.
You're now becoming undecided now. You can switch to undecided.
Billy Connolly is already having an effect.
All right, thank you all very much. Very